So how is this class important from interview point of view? So in data science interviews, there is there are some companies which test you on your coding skills, right? So those will be very basic coding questions, but those will test your aptitude and majorly coding aptitude, right? So how do you think about a problem? Okay, so are you able to debug the code that you have written? Are you able to figure out where your code might go wrong, right? So these are the skills that they want to see. And uh, it's all about using your coding aptitude at that point of time to solve that problem. And mostly you'll encounter coding questions in almost 30-40% of your interviews. 30 to 40% of companies conduct coding round uh, in their interview process, right? So what essentially happens in that session is they will give you a problem statement which you have to do on a pen and a paper if you are sitting in a face-to-face interview, or they will provide you a editor wherein you will not be able to run the code, right? So this is very important. So why don't they want you to run the code is because they want you to run the code in your head and figure out whether it will work or not, right? So what this essentially means is that if you are writing, let's say, a for loop, right? So for I in range 1 to 5, and then there is some code which is working on that variable I. So once you have written that, one way is to run the code and see if it is giving the desired output. But one other way to look at it is, can you just run the for loop in your head? So the first value of I is 1, and then can I put it in the corresponding code and see what that function, what that iteration is doing, right? What is the end result of that iteration? And then the second uh, and then you start with the second iteration I equal to 2 and see what is happening, and this way you figure out whether your code will work or not, right? So you run the code in your head and figure out if it will work or not, right? So many some of the companies give you editors where you can run the code as well, but that is the last step. Even if you have an editor, you should always try to build this habit of trying to debug the code by yourself and to figure out as to what might have gone wrong due to which the expected behavior is not coming, let's say, right? So and also one more thing is the test cases, right? So once you have written the code, you are confident that this will work. Figure out test cases, as in what are those type of inputs for which the code might fail, right? Or are the corner cases, right? So if you are playing around with strings, one of the very common corner cases is what if the inputs are two strings which do not have any characters, right? So empty strings, correct? So this is a one test case which should be handled by your code. It should not throw an error in that case, right? So this is a simple use case. From problem statement to problem statement, you will see that your test cases might vary, right? So what are those type of inputs for which the code might not be able to give the desired output? So then that is one part. So okay, so running the code in your head, very important, and thinking of the test cases where it might fail, and for those test cases thinking what the code will do, right? And that's how you improve your code to get to a final answer. So that's mostly it, right? So once you start coding and do more practice, you'll get more flavor of what this thing looks like. But from an interview point of view, very less weightage on this front. So these coding rounds are more important from a software engineering role kind of thing, right? So which we are not concerned about. So in data scientist, data analyst roles, they probably will give you a very easy question, easy to medium level, not a hard level question, because that is what they expect from a data scientist. So some bit of coding aptitude should be there, right? And one more peculiar thing about competitive coding or any coding problem statement is that this is totally unrelated to what you will be doing in data science, right? So pandas and numpy are the two libraries that you will be using in data science, right? So not much of competitive coding utility in data science, uh, you know is there, right? So okay, so let's begin, right? So we can start with today's problem statement. So how this works is that in an interview as well, you'll be given a limited time to solve a problem, and that's why today also we'll try to simulate that and see how this works, right? So it's kind of a practice. uh, uh, it's meant for practice and not for any competition as of now, right? So take it lightly and try to think about the problem in a deeper manner. So there is only one problem statement which you need to solve in 1 hour. So even if you are not able to solve it, it's totally fine because this is tricky. And developing a coding aptitude, so for some people have it inherently, but for the rest of you it has to be developed through practice. So consciously put some effort in solving questions like these, and you are good to go. Okay, so I'll just show you where you can practice more coding questions like these, right? So there is a website called HackerRank, many of you might be familiar. So just go there and create an account, so you'll be seeing this kind of a view. Okay, so and you can just go to practice and then go to interview preparation kit. Okay, so you can just click here, and I'll tell you the topics that are important from data science interview point of view. So there are a few questions which you can practice from. So these there are all these topics, but not everything is required. So you should focus only on dictionaries and hash maps, arrays, string manipulation. That's it, right? So these are the three things that you should practice for a beginner, right? So you should just focus on these as of now. Okay, string manipulation, arrays, dictionaries, and hash maps. That's all. So you can go to any of the challenges. So today's challenge has been picked from HackerRank only. So this is the challenge that we'll be doing today. Okay, so you can practice and always try to start with the easy ones and then move on to the medium ones. Okay, so the a better way to do it is you should set a timer for yourself, even if there is no timer here, and try to code it within that time. Okay, initially for a few problem statements you can do it untimed, but later on when you get confident that I'm able to solve it, try to solve it in a lesser duration. Okay, so let's start with today's problem statement. So I'll just explain it a bit, and then you can proceed to code. So the timer will start after I end this description, right? So today let's read out the problem statement first. So a student is taking a cryptography class and has found anagrams to be very useful. Two strings are anagrams of each other. If the first string's letters can be rearranged to form the second string, right? So two strings are anagrams of each other if the first string's letters can be rearranged to form the second string. So it will be more clear when you see the examples, right? So in other words, both strings must contain the exact same letters in the exact same frequency. Okay, so for example, so BACDC and BCBAC are anagrams because you can find every character which is present here that can be found in this string as well. So B is matching, A is matching, C is matching, and D is matching, but C is again matching with this C. So two C's in the first string and two C's in the second string. So it's an anagram, right? If let's say we had one C here, then it would not be have been an anagram because one C is missing. Okay. Uh, so the student decides on an encryption scheme that involves two large strings. The encryption is dependent on the minimum number of character deletions required to make the two strings anagrams. Okay, so you need to determine this number. So given two strings A and B that may or may not be of the same length, determine the minimum number of character deletions required to make A and B anagrams. any characters can be deleted from either of the strings. The strings A and B consist of lowercase English alphabets. Okay, so one example just to clarify what this question is saying. So let's say there are two strings A and B. So A is C, D, E, B is D, C, F. So C and D are common, right? So E and F, if I can remove E from this and F from this, these two will become anagrams. Okay. So essentially we have to delete two characters in total to make A and B as anagrams. So, right. So the answer for this particular input should be 2. Okay. So you have to write a function named make anagram, and it will take two strings, string A and string B, and it will return a int kind of an output. So it should be an integer output which denotes the minimum number of total characters that must be deleted from the two strings to make them anagrams. Okay, so this is a problem statement. So I hope everything is clear. So anyone has any doubts in the problem statement?
So am I audible, guys? Can you confirm?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay,
Sure.
great. Okay, so basically the question asked you to figure out the minimum number of characters that you need to delete so as to be able to make the two strings as anagrams, right? So if let's say I take a string ABC and then I have BCD, so so anagrams are nothing but two strings with exactly the same characters, right? Both in terms of type and frequency, right? So here we have uh, B and C, which are common in both of them. So we need to delete this and this to make them anagrams, right? So then we can take another example wherein let's say there are repeated characters. So A, B, A, C, and let's say you have A, B, right? So here to make this an anagram, you need to delete one A and one C, right? So that these two are common, right? Yeah, so the basic idea is that the number of characters you were given, the characters would be from A to Z in lowercase, right? So this is what was given in the question. So we do not need to handle case sensitivity, right? So all the strings would consist of only lowercase alphabets, right? So now how do you think about this problem, right? So the first thing you need to think about is you need to somehow definitely count the number of each of the characters in each of the strings, right? So I need to count, let's say, how many times A has occurred in this string and how many times A has occurred in this string, right? And the same will be valid for all of the characters, right? So for all of the characters in distinct characters in both the strings, we need to figure out how many times they have occurred, right? And if there is some difference, we need to delete uh, the part where there is a difference, right? So here if the count is 2 for A, the count is 2, here for A the count is 1. So we know that at least one A has to be deleted from either of the strings, right? So one A has to be deleted, one A to be deleted, right? So now okay, so now we need to delete one A, which is essentially nothing but 2 minus 1, right? So for every character we need to figure out this difference, right? And this will probably solve our problem, right? So if let's say I have B occurs one time, here B occurs one time, so the number of times B needs to be deleted is 0. B's to be deleted. So now when I do this, I get an idea of about how to proceed about this problem, right? So if I can somehow count all the type of characters, so since this is limited, right? So these are 26 in number. Can I just go ahead and count all the occurrences of A to Z in each of these two strings, right? So probably I have to write just one single function which will count the number of alphabets, each of the alphabets in each of the strings. Just one function would do this job. Okay, so here I am just breaking this problem into a sub problem, right? So if I achieve that, right, so if I get something of this sort for each of the strings, right? So here probably C is also 1, right? And everything else is 0. Everything else is 0. Here everything else is 0, right? If I can somehow count this and construct this kind of a entity, I can just figure out the differences between the corresponding alphabets to come up with a solution. Okay, so I just need to figure out this dictionary, which the kind of setup that I created here seems like it would be better to create a dictionary, right? Which stores each of the characters frequency, right? So you can use any other construct that you can think of, right, which maps a certain key to a certain uh, value, right? Let's say if I create an array as well, that is also fine, right? So if you can create an array which is uh, indexes are kind of storing the frequency, right? So indexes are kind of representing the characters or the alphabets. This is also fine, right? So we can just do this. Okay, and so on. So I'll just store corresponding values. So in this case, I need to store 2 1 1 0 0 and so on. Okay, then comes this string, second string, which can be similarly stored in a different array. Okay, so definitely I can do this. So the one advantage of this is I can just iterate over these two lists together, because the number of elements is the same. If I, let's say, construct for all the characters A to Z, the number of elements in each of these lists would be same. So I just need to write one for loop in which I will iterate over the indexes. So this is how I'll iterate. So first one, second one, and so on till the end, and figure out the differences. Okay, so one case that I can think of, what if this is this and this is this, then these two are reversed, right? But again, this delta that I have figured out, this difference that I have figured out, is nothing but the absolute difference, right? So it does not matter which one has more, right? If there is anything extra in any of these strings, I need to delete, right? So does not matter which one has an extra one. So we can definitely take the absolute difference, right? So that is one part I figured out from this construct. Okay, now what do I need to do? So if I can create this map, most of my problem is solved. I just need to find out these numbers, the absolute differences, and add them up, right? So this will be my answer if I just add them up, all these differences, absolute differences, because those are the number of characters that I need to delete, right? Total number of characters that I need to delete. So if I can create these two, my problem is solved, right? So this is the part which is tricky. After that, it's a easy job. We'll just figure out the number of extra characters in each of the uh, alphabets and each of the letters, and I'll delete take the sum, and this will be the output of my function. So this is the thought process. So how do you go about creating this or this? So if you try to figure out the distinct characters, it will be slightly tricky, but it can be done, right? So here we have, in both these strings, you have three distinct characters, right? So A, B, and C. See, these are the three distinct characters here and here. So in our array, we do not need the whole thing. We can just do with this, right? But let's just try to construct this full thing, because that is more intuitive, right? So I'll create a dictionary for all of this, A to Z. Okay. So for that, you need to figure out, you need to just match and figure out which string is matching, right? So which character is what, right? So one way to do it is, let's just try to think about this problem a bit, right? So how do you achieve this kind of a setup? So one way to do this is, let's just create a entity which stores all the characters, right? So A, B, C, and so on. You can store all of these characters. That is one way to do it, right? You can, store all of this. Like, these are the keys of the dictionary. You can think about it, right? Can we avoid writing these? So in array kind of a setup, uh, I know that the first is A, second is B, and so on, right? So from index, I can reference which one is which. That is one part. But here, I see that this is a character, right? So there is something that I need to create which is missing, which should do our job, right? So if I can somehow map that this is the first character, this is the second one, and so on. If I somehow create a mapping between these two, something like this, our problem might get solved, right? So then we can refer with indexes itself, right, for this kind of an array. Okay, so to convert A to 0, one way is to just create a hash map, which is, just a dictionary which stores this notion that what is the position of each of the alphabets in the array, right? So index wise. So you can create something like this. And so on. So you can create this manually. This will also solve your problem. But so Python, of course, will not let us do this redundant work of writing all of this. So it has some inbuilt function. It is totally fine if you do not know, you are not aware of that function. It's totally fine. Writing this will take just uh, maybe 30 seconds, right? Or 1 minute. That's all. So you can, instead of just thinking about what function to use, how do I create this map, you can just write it down, because this is not what the interviewer is testing, right? Whether you know a function in Python or not. He wants to check this part, right? So the whole this part is what he's wanting to check, right? So are you able to think about this problem in this manner? That is all. Okay. So once you have done that, even if you explain this logic correctly, you will get, at least 70% of the marks, right? In this case, marks. In an actual interview, if you are able to come up with all of this stuff and you are going in the right direction, you will, there's a high chance that you will get selected in with that particular round. Okay. So it is this part, this thinking, which is necessary. And you can see right now I have not written a single line of code yet, right? So it's the thought that has gone into the problem that is crucial. Okay. So if I had to write this function, so let's say I have created this already. Okay. So if I need to write this, how do I go about it? So I need to iterate over each and every string's character and figure out the frequency of each one of them, right? So that is one part. Okay. So okay, cool. So the main reason to create this is I want to store in an array. Okay. So that I don't need to create a dictionary. So let's just store it in an array, all these terms. So to do that, what do we do? Let's just first initialize these two arrays, right, which are full of zeros. Then we will add one by one from these strings as and when we get some letters, right? So first thing would be to just initialize these two empty arrays, which has the placeholders for 26 characters or letters, right? So what we can do then is, let's say, can write something like just store the value of number of characters. Let's say, let's just call it n. n here is 26, right? So you need to create a array which has 26 elements, right? So what you can do is string one array, string array one, let's say, is equal to, I can just write 0 into n. Okay, so this will just replicate the zeros 26 times, and it will create a array something like this, and so on. So this will be repeated 26 times. Okay, so this is one. So similarly, I need to create an array for the other part as well. Okay, initialize this, and then we can do something like okay, so what do we do now? We need to add the frequencies of each of the repetitions, right? So a is repeated 2 times, so we need to take care of that. So we can proceed one by one, right? So if I see this information, I will first try to include this information in my array, second information, so third information, and so on. So I'll keep on moving and keep on adding information. So I just need to iterate over this string. Okay, so let's start iterating over a string. So for character in string one, so I'm just calling two strings as string one and string two. Okay, so string one and string two are my two strings, input strings. Okay, so for character in string one, right, I need to, so this will be the character that is coming, right? So now I need to look up the index that I need to put in, right? So let's say if this character is let's say J, right? So I need to increment the count of in this array. I need to increment the count of the position of J, right? So I need to find the position first. So and just to do that, I have created and written this part, right? So how do I find the position in the array? I'll just look up in the dictionary for the position and then populate it likewise. Okay, so for character in string one, I need for so this character is nothing but my key through which I can extract the index. So I can just write character index, which is just denoting the position of this character in the alphabetical list, right? So this is nothing but let's say this array is what I have, this dictionary is what I have defined. I can call it a map. Okay, so this is nothing but a map. Okay, I have just written a map here. So in the map, I will just find the index by just looking up this character. So map char, what is map char? What is this doing? In the map, it is looking for this key, which is character. So if I go by this example, okay, I'll just write it down. So let's say my string one is okay. So the first character will be A. So I need to look up A, the position of A in this dictionary, right? So that is what I'm doing. So this has A now, and in the map of A will be 0. So this value will get a 0 value, okay, from this map, right? So now I got the position of this character in the array, right? So then it becomes easy, right? So I need to just change the value in this list, which is my uh, string array one, and increment it by 1 because I've just seen one instance of A. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and add that, right? So string array 1 So string array 1 is it, and the index which I need to modify is char index, right? So this is how I fetch that number, and this is what I need to modify, right? So this is equal to whatever value was there, I just need to increment it by 1. Right, so I just incremented whatever was there in the array by 1, right? So what this will do is, again, in the second, when the second iteration begins, it goes to B, finds out the index corresponding to B, which is 1, and then figures out in that array, uh, it looks up for this index which is 1, so string array 1. So it will just modify this bit. Okay, so it will modify that, and basically it will increment it by 1 and so on. So again it moves to the next character, which is A. So for A, what it does is, again it finds out the corresponding position, then it figures out that already the value is 1, right? So this value will be already 1, because once A has already occurred, so then it will increment it again by 1, so it becomes 2. Okay, and that is how you can create this string array 1, right? So your after the end of this for loop, this string array 1 will store these values, right? So everything will be 0, and 2 1 1 will be stored in this string array 1. Similarly, you can do for no string 2, and just similar code. You just need to write it again, or maybe wrap this inside a function which gives you an array, right? So that is it. Okay, so you can just repeat it for in string 2, index equal to map index map char, and then string array 2 equal to string array 2, that char index plus 1, right? So this is how you can populate these two arrays. Now the job is very simple. So just need to take the absolute differences and complete it, right? So you know that there are 26 characters altogether. So you can just write for loop. So for I in range 26. So this will iterate from 0 to 25 for I. And then you can just subset, take the absolute difference. So the difference, absolute difference will be string array 1 I minus string array 2 I. So we are doing nothing but taking the differences here. So just taking the differences. Okay. So again, so this is just the difference. You need to take the absolute difference. So abs function is there, right? So the absolute difference is this. Do you can so every time you get this difference, you need to add this up, right? So add this up to get the final result. So you can just initialize a variable called result, initialize it to 0. Every time you get the absolute difference, just add it. That is all. So this result will be your answer, right? So this is the code that would work, right? So once you have written this, just wrap this up inside a function. So def whatever name of the function, and then you pass string 1, string 2, and return result. So this is how the solution looks like. Okay, so yeah, I hope this part is clear. Anyone has any questions in this part? Any questions, anyone, in the solution bit? Okay, cool. Yep, I think if this is clear, then we'll wrap this up. I hope you learned something new today. So we will have more such sessions. So tomorrow is a guided project, in which we'll cover some more problems like these and see how we can do this, right? So there'll be no quiz today. So we'll just wrap up this session.